The greatest competitive advantage that you can get from a media agency is not trading position any longer. It's not really technology or data. It is talent, making sure that you've got the best talent engineered in a way that is focused on your business objectives. That delivers competitive advantage.
Hello everyone, good to see you back here. Welcome back to Media Snack, the show about media that we all love. Whether you're an advertiser, you work in agencies, you work in publisher, technology, or anybody else in this wonderful industry, we all want to win together. And that's the new focus of Media Snack, called Media Snack Winning.
Okay, Tom, what's something that's happening in the industry that's caught your attention recently?
Very, very hard to ignore all the talk around the Omnicom offer to acquire the assets of IPG. These are competitive groups, and everybody, I guess, will be familiar with the names Omnicom Group and IPG, or the Interpublic Group. Big competitors. This is the single largest merger or acquisition deal amongst media agencies. It would create the world's largest conglomerate multidisciplinary marketing services business, media, creative, PR, digital, lots and lots of other elements to both of these groups. Are very complex businesses. So bringing them together is quite a complex undertaking, but it's, for those businesses, the right strategy. They are competing against what they think is kind of scale players in terms of the technology platforms, the Google's, Meta, Amazon, etc. And they believe, bigger scale to enable better value out of those negotiations and relationships with those platforms on behalf of the world's largest advertisers. The point to make is that I don't think there are many advertisers asking agencies to be just even bigger. And lots of the communication around this merger, this acquisition, seems to center on bringing together the assets of the business. There's not much talk about the clients that they're designed to serve yet. So we're not that cynical about it yet. I think it's probably the right direction for the holding company agencies, but time will tell. This is going to be probably the biggest story of 2025 in terms of agency world, and important for marketers to have a point of view on. We call this segment How Not to Lose, because it's really, it's for everybody, but we're really talking to the advertiser. So how do the advertisers not lose in this situation?
The first thing to say is that should this merger acquisition go through, the bigger challenge is going to be the massive integration of, as you said, the assets of both massive holding companies. And even with the most impeccable planning and perfect execution, that isn't going to happen for another 12 months. So if the regulators allow it to go through, that may happen at some stage this year, second half of this year, before this new super holding company is fully operational. It's not going to be before the back end of 2026. So that's a long time for advertisers and the industry to perhaps get their stories right on it. Nevertheless, in the meantime, there is going to be an enormous amount of noise and disruption around this topic. So if I was an advertiser now, and I'm putting myself in the shoes of those advertisers that are currently looked after by the networks and the agencies within Omnicom and IPG, I would be asking one simple question: what's in it for me? So I appreciate why this may happen for the shareholders of both holding companies and perhaps the senior management, but where is the benefit to me as an advertiser? That's the first thing. And I'm sure that they will have a very compelling reason why this integration and merger should benefit all of their clients, but certainly ask the question. The second thing that I would be probably wanting to do is to future-proof my relationship. If my relationship is strong with my current network, what I want to do is I want to just tighten it up. I want to make sure that my new working relationship with this new entity is fully protected. So I'll be looking to probably renegotiate the terms of my engagement with my new holding company, just to future-proof all of the good things that I currently get, and maybe add in one or two extra.
There's got to be a benefit, right? If there is an advertiser benefit, you want to get hold of that as an advertiser.
You do. Absolutely. But the other thing that would be probably worrying me a little bit more than everything else would be talent. Now, as part of the deal, the leaders of these two holding companies have quite openly talked about the delivery of synergies. So the benefits, the cost benefits of bringing these two companies together. They've talked about finding $750 million worth of synergies. So cost savings, $750 million in year one. Now, there's only one way that that's going to be generated, and that is going to be through reducing the resources and the workforce within this new supergroup. So that means that we are expecting a raft of redundancies, most likely to be concentrated in the US, simply because that's where the center of gravity is for both of these holding companies. So if I'm an advertiser who enjoys working with my agency, has a good relationship with the team that work on my agency, on my business, I will want to make sure that my talent is protected. My talent is going to be ring fenced and protected in consideration of whatever synergy strategies get put in place. So those are the two things that I would recommend for sort of clients. Make sure that you've got your contract is watertight. Make sure that it is protected in front of the new holding company. Make sure that you get a little bit extra as part of this deal, and make sure that the talent is in place and protected, because you don't want to be losing those.
How do we do that? Just to explain to people. So in terms of securing talent, because I agree, and a lot of advertisers have been through this recently. We've had other groups that are starting to kind of thin out what they've called like duplicative layers of management, and we're finding actually that a lot of the people that are being let go of it from major holding company agencies are really the kind of like the middle to upper middle management, where there's just been a lot of duplication, either across agency brands within the holding company, or with geographic management. You've got global, regional, sub-regional, local market reporting, sometimes with multiple agencies into a holding company. Huge duplication of expensive resources there. Probably not needed. It's not really affecting that the more junior level. They're thinning out even more the top. We expect likely to be the same with OMG and IPG coming together. There's going to be huge duplication of management roles, which we're going to kind of clear out. So if you're the advertiser, how do you get that? How do you secure your actual delivery talent?
There's two things to do. Number one, be really clear on your scope of work. Be really clear on the role and the responsibility that you want your agency to fulfill on your behalf. Make sure that clear scope of work delivers what you need now, but also delivers what you need to have done in the next 12 to 18 months. So once you've got the scope of work as practically structured as you possibly can, as clearly structured as you possibly can, then you ask the agencies to reflect their resource structure against it. So who is doing what as part of your need? There's no opportunity for indulgence. If there is multiple resource structures in place with tiny amounts of time on your business, you don't need that. That's not effective resource management. But make sure that the resource that is on your business is delivering against your needs now and in the future, and then protect it. And the way that you protect it is by naming it within your contract. There's an addendum within every contract that allows you to name the people that are on your business, perhaps with responsibility for 30 or 40% more of their time. That is fine, because you're paying the majority of their salaries, quite frankly. So make sure that is named within your contract. And if they are delivering a great job, look after them, protect them, and make sure that they remain looked after within the disruption of this new structure.
So it's all about names. Get names on paper.
Absolutely.
Because those advertisers that don't have named resource are the ones that are probably going to be, impacted first. If you're just paying, for example, a generic blended commission rate with no named resource in your scope of work or in your agreement with the agency, you'll probably be the first place that they'll go to kind of carve out, particularly some of the more expensive resources, because you've got no leverage and you won't, the agency's under no obligation at that point to keep a certain quality level. So good advice. Get the names on the paper as soon as possible.
And just one final point on this. The greatest competitive advantage that you can get from a media agency is not trading position any longer. It's not really technology or data. It is talent. Making sure that you've got the best talent engineered in a way that is focused on your business objectives. That delivers competitive advantage.
Very good.
So, Tom, what else has been on your mind?
Over in the US, over here particularly, there's been a lot of drama around TikTok. I know that no one else in the world really cares whether we have TikTok here or not, but it's quite important because it has lots of kind of wider implications. In January, after kind of threats from the government, TikTok actually went kind of dark for about 24, 48 hours, depending on the user. And the reason is because of its Chinese ownership through a company called ByteDance, which is based in China. Although it says it's independent of the government, there's fears that there's potential kind of data sharing. And just the volume of data that's being collected, potentially in TikTok, and insights into American way of life and decision making and lots of things. I mean, nowadays we can, there's a risk, isn't there, that this is a huge data source that maybe AI can start to give foreign governments some peculiar insight into the way we live here in the US. Whether TikTok is representative, really, truly, of how we live, I don't know, or whether it's some perverse reality. But it's pretty raw, TikTok, and I guess it's a good understanding of American culture. But anyway, it raised question marks in the government because of these apparent kind of security and data fears. The other part of it, really, I think, is that you've got the office of the president, and by the way, I'm separating that from the individual, whoever the president may or may not be. But the office of the president, frankly, needs to protect their integrity and authority. And so putting some pressure on one of these very, very influential social media companies sends a message to all of these companies that the office of the president has the power to change their fortunes should he or she wish to. So it's been kind of maybe a bit of a scapegoat, perhaps being a bit politicized, quite dramatic language around national security and things around it. But it's put the kind of tech companies in their place potentially for a little bit. Nobody wants to mess around and find out what happens if they're not in the good books of the office of the president. These companies, TikTok and others, they're wonderful tools and very helpful for millions of small businesses and creators, and they should be, of course, protected. If the technology companies comply, then they're going to be given more freedom. There were risks last year, or threats potentially from the DOJ, that Google or Alphabet, its parent company, would be broken up because there was fear in the US government, certainly, that these technology companies were too big and maybe a threat to the integrity of the president, the office of the president, or a threat to government potentially. But they've got to now support the American agenda. We believe that TikTok will continue. The ownership of it might change. The president is talking about somebody else trying to buy it, and if they buy it, they're going to give half of it. The deal is that they give half of it to the US government, which would be incredibly lucrative, and pay for maybe some of the tax cuts that are being handed out elsewhere. But we've got a few weeks to see what happens, because TikTok may be forced into American national ownership, or it may be blocked altogether. So it's got a lot of TikTok creators and users very worried, because it's a really valuable and important asset. But it's become politicized. It is maybe a bit of a scapegoat. I think a deal will materialize at some point. This will be managed. But it just shows you, it's illustrative of how politics and kind of national agenda has got so close to our media industry for many, many years, or forever, really. Apart from when it's election season, most people haven't really thought about advertising particularly much, but it's really kind of on the radar of political leaders, just because it's so influential and it's in private hands. And any leader wants to have influence on those platforms and the messages that they may or may not be promoting. So it's the digital age version, I suppose, of the press barons, just being kind of pulled into line by whoever's in the Oval Office at the moment. So we'll see how it plays out, but it does have potential implications and ramifications for what advertisers, how advertisers can advertise on what platforms in the future.
Absolutely right.
So when it comes to TikTok, this is an ongoing saga, another one, but how should advertisers not lose when they're thinking about TikTok?
My first observation is how fragile these massive, super successful media platforms can potentially be. It's rare that something so dominant in terms of our media landscape can one day perhaps just be switched off, right? And so as an advertiser, it makes you think on your feet. I think that's probably what my immediate reaction to this would be. In the US, I think there was about $11 billion invested behind TikTok by advertisers last year. Now that 11 billion, if TikTok is no longer, is going to go elsewhere. And it's going to go elsewhere because audiences are going to go elsewhere. So that's the big thing. For me, if I was an advertiser and I was dominant or heavily invested in TikTok, I would be thinking of two things. I would be firstly looking to protect my data and my audience understanding, whatever sat within my usage of TikTok. I'd want to make sure that I had that back so I don't lose it all. If they literally unplug the electricity on TikTok, that's the first thing. Make sure that I'm protected and that I haven't lost all of that wealth of insight and knowledge. And the second thing is, what's my contingency plan? Right? Where are the audiences going to go? What am I going to be using in exchange of TikTok not being there? How am I going to be making my next big bets? Right? Is this an opportunity to perhaps exploit the marketplace a little bit more, making sure that I'm moving in the right direction when my competitors perhaps aren't? And this is where I'm looking to use my agencies to help me steer that kind of decision-making process. So in moments of doubt or confusion or opportunity, often the greatest source of insight and direction and guidance is your smart strategic media agency digital partner that can help you kind of navigate the decisions that you're going to be making. And perhaps this is a sign of things to come. Maybe advertisers need to be a little bit more agile. They need to be a little bit more reactive to what's happening in the marketplace. And so, the cookie cutter approach of what happened last year is going to happen this year no longer exists. Have a plan, make sure that you're prepared for that plan perhaps to need changing. Exactly right. That's what I would be saying. But lean on your agencies because they're a great source of insight and direction in moments of confusion.
Mike, I love the Mike Tyson quote. It's like everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And this is a good example of just giving yourself the flexibility and staying on top of the story. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing Media Snack Winning, because there's just so much that you have to adapt to all the time. That's it for another episode of Media Snack Winning. I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to click below to access all of the show notes. We'll always share with you the best resources that we talk about in the show itself. If you want to keep abreast of what's going on in the media industry, don't forget to subscribe and alert or follow wherever you are, so you'll always get a fresh media snack when you need it. But that's it for now. See you next time.
Bye for now.